In this video, I'm going to take a look at a brand new external SSD from Samsung, the T5 Evo. It actually launches today, and it is meant to be an affordable external SSD that is also one of the few drives on the market that will come in an 8 terabyte capacity. So let's check it out. Let's see how it performs, how it compares to some of the alternatives that you might have in mind, and more importantly, let's see if this external SSD makes any sense to buy. Let's begin. The T5 Evo will launch in a few different capacities, going from 2 terabytes all the way up to 8 terabytes, with the 8 terabyte model being the most interesting, in my opinion. It's not the very first external SSD available in that capacity, but they are extremely rare. They're often bigger and heavier, and they're usually very expensive in most parts of the world. So now, with Samsung saying that they're aiming this to be relatively affordable, and the fact that Samsung products are often widely available, just means that this drive should start normalizing 8 terabyte external SSDs, which is just great news for anyone that really needs a lot of storage. And it really is a nice and portable drive. The 8 terabyte version I have here weighs just under 100 grams, which does make it the lightest and most compact 8 terabyte SSD that I can find. Still, it feels really well built with a metal chassis and a rubber coating, which should make it drop resistant up to 2 meters of height. Unfortunately, this material does attract dust a lot, which makes it look kind of dirty the second you take it out of the package, so I really do think they should look into some alternatives for their future drives. Now, I personally prefer the look of the old T5s and T7s, but functionally, this does make sense as it makes it a bit sturdier and less likely to break. It doesn't have an IP rating, so while an accidental spill shouldn't be an issue for this design, do make sure you don't drop it in water. The specs are identical for all capacities, and here we can see why Samsung is aiming this T5 Evo to be on the lower end of the market. It is a USB 3.2 Gen 1 drive or a 5 gigabit drive with sequential speeds of up to 460 megabytes per second. It specifically mentions the drop resistance, although physical damage caused by a drop will not be covered under the 3-year-long warranty. Also, 3 years is less than the 5 years you would get on the T9 drive, but 3 years is still very decent and pretty standard even for mid-range and high-end external SSDs. I'm also happy to see that encryption is supported on this drive, which is something that every SSD should offer, but many still don't. And to use the encryption, you will have to go through the same Encryption software that is used for Samsung internal SSDs. So it is now all within one app instead of having a separate app for external drives. And with the Encryption software, you can also get firmware updates easily, and you can also check the drive's health, which isn't always easy for external SSDs. So in my opinion, this is a very nice improvement. But let's move on to the actual performance, and I'm going to start with the PC Mark 10 Quick Benchmark. And as I always say, this is a bundle of trace benchmarks that simulate all kinds of simple little things we do with our PCs every single day. Working with documents, for example, opening your photos, loading games, and so on. And this is a very useful benchmark to look at if you're looking for an external SSD for those simple little things. And the T5 Evo ended up somewhere in the middle of this graph. It is not a bad performance because it was beating other 5 gigabit USB drives like the SanDisk Extreme or even other budget-focused drives like the Crucial X6, but it also beats the 10 gigabit Samsung T7. That being said, there are faster options on the market like the Crucial X8, Transcend ESD 380C, or the SanDisk Extreme Pro. And to be perfectly honest, any SSD is going to do these tasks just fine either way. So if you're just going to store and open some documents or your photos, it is going to be very difficult to tell the difference between any of these drives, and you should probably just get the one that is the most affordable in your region. The full PC Mark 10 suite is a test that is a bit more serious, and it simulates a more intense and more constant use of your drive. So this is a great benchmark to look at if you need to run some applications that can be very heavy on the SSD. And with this heavier workload, the T5 Evo performed about the same as before, while most other drives started pulling ahead a bit more. Again, it is not a bad result for a 5 gigabit drive, but if you're serious about doing some proper photo editing or video editing from your external SSD, you should probably look at models that are higher up in this list. The 3D Mark storage benchmark is a test that includes a lot of gaming-related tasks like loading games, installing games, recording games, moving game folders around, and so on. And this is a very nicely balanced test to look at if you're mainly going to use this external SSD to game from. And here, the T5 Evo is at the bottom of the graph. The difference with some of its competitors is small in absolute numbers. So if you need an 8TB capacity, it can function as an external game library well enough-ish, but I would still personally rather consider a faster 4TB drive instead. While sequential performance isn't that relevant when it comes to internal SSDs, it is relevant when it comes to external SSDs, which are often used to just copy data to and from. And as a 5GB USB 3.2 Gen 1 drive, a sequential performance just isn't great when you compare it to 10GB drives. And technically, the 440 megabyte per second average isn't even pushing the limits of the port. But sequential performance is consistent. When transferring hundreds of gigabytes at once, or even when the drive is mostly full, the performance doesn't drop. There seems to be no thermal throttling, and it doesn't get warm to touch at all, while some SSDs can get really warm or even uncomfortably hot to touch, and this one just remains nice and cool. But keep in mind, 440-ish megabytes per second average means that it will take a couple of hours to fill an entire 8TB drive. So if you're primarily looking to transfer a lot of data fast, using two 4TB 20GB drives would be just a lot faster. So as I kind of expected from these specs alone, the T5 Evo isn't really a drive that will sell based on its performance. It is fine for a USB 3.2 Gen 1 drive and its performance is very consistent, but USB 3.2 Gen 2 drives will be faster at most tasks. In the pre-launch communication, Samsung was clear that they are targeting external hard drive users, and if you're comparing this to an external mechanical hard drive, it is obviously way better in every possible way. But that doesn't mean that you can just ignore all the SSD competition that has been available for a while now. So, for 2TB and 4TB versions that have plenty of alternatives on the market, it will very much so depend on the price. Samsung hasn't shared any pricing information before I filmed this video, but even if they had, I would tell you that SSD prices change every day, and you will have to keep an eye on the prices in your region at the time of buying. So, if you're looking for a simple drive for some light use or just as a compact and portable archive, and you find the T5 Evo for a very good price, it will be completely fine and it will make sense to get it. But keep in mind, it needs to be significantly cheaper than its A-brand competitors, because if it ends up costing close to or even more than some of the higher-end alternatives you saw in the graph today, I would just get those instead. Now, the 8TB model is a little bit different because it has less competition. 4TB drives are currently selling for about 200 to 300 euros or dollars, while it is really hard to find an 8TB alternative for less than 1,000 euros here in the Netherlands. And if Samsung can make the T5 Evo widely available and keep the prices reasonable, it will mean that anyone that is looking for a compact 8TB external SSD will actually have a reasonable option to consider. Just remember that this is meant for either some light use or as an external archive. If you want a super fast 8TB SSD to directly edit 4K footage from, you will have to wait a bit longer. Still, it is very nice to see that larger capacities are being normalized by a big brand, which also means that other brands will likely follow, and that would be a great thing because lots of competition is the main thing that drives the prices down. Now, that is all I had for today, but before I go, let's hear it from the sponsor of this video. This video was brought to you by Seasonic and their Vertex power supplies. These fully modular power supplies are extremely efficient and very quiet due to their fan design and their hybrid fan mode that stops the fans completely under 40% load. They come with a variety of connections for any kind of system you have in mind, including the 12-volt high-power cable for the latest NVIDIA graphics cards. And to wrap it all up, they now offer a nice and cozy 12-year-long warranty. Check them out using the links in the description below. Thank you all for watching and for sticking to the end of this video. If you liked it, please do consider clicking that subscribe button so you never miss my future uploads. Bye all, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!